Alright, so for this video, I'm going to talk about the difference between origin science and operation science. And just to give a brief background, a few months ago there was a debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye about creation versus evolution. Ken Ham is the president of the Creation Museum, and Bill Nye, of course, had a children's show about 15-20 years ago. I found it quite interesting because during this debate, Ken Ham talked about the difference between origin science versus operation science. And as a result of that, there were a lot of secular websites that said that this is a distinction that he made up. There's no distinction between origin science and operation science in the scientific community. There's just science. But I found this kind of strange because Ken Ham did quote mainstream secular textbooks on this matter, so according to these textbooks, there is a distinction. Also, Ken Ham was accused by Bill Nye several times of believing that the natural laws that exist today are different from those that existed 4,000 years ago. But Ken Ham made it very clear during the debate that this is not his position. Natural laws have not changed. So, without further ado, let me get into explaining the difference between origin science and operation science and the different terms that would fall underneath those two categories. As you can see, I put together a chart explaining the different types of science, the different approaches to scientific methodology. The first umbrella category is operation science, which is our study and understanding of how things operate and function on a day-to-day basis. This would include our study of how atoms bond to one another, how gravity works, and how living things reproduce, for example. The second umbrella category would be origin science, also known as historical science. As you can see, I put a picture of a dinosaur fossil here. Origin science is our inferences about events in the distant past. How old is this volcano? How far did the glaciers spread during the Ice Age? What did this group of dinosaurs eat? Etc. Origin science is more prone to bias, because a person's worldview determines what is or is not possible for them. For example, secular geologists usually assume that there never was a global flood before they look at the evidence. Creation geologists, on the other hand, think that a global flood is the best explanation for the evidence that we find in geology. As someone in the biological sciences, I have actually heard people say that we are not allowed to even consider the possibility that living things were designed by an intelligent agent, even if the evidence supports that idea. The first category under operation science is experimental science. I think this is what people tend to think of when they think of science. As you can see, I put together a picture of a chemistry flask here. Now, you can hate on my artwork, but I think it gives you the idea. Experimental science is when we physically perform an experiment in a laboratory in a controlled manner. This might include experiments involving different chemical reactions, the different impact of physical forces on a given object, or experiments to see whether algae grows better or worse given a particular fertilizer. Observational science is science that is built based on careful observation of natural processes. In science, we can't always perform an experiment. For example, when we are looking at the moon and the moon's orbit around the Earth, we can't build another Earth and see what happens when we change the orbit of the moon. We can build computer simulations, which would fall under theoretical science, but we can't always actually perform a physical experiment. So things like astronomy, for example, would fall under observational science. So this brings us to theoretical science. Theoretical science is basically building models and making predictions based on what we know from previously collected scientific knowledge. Now, in science, the term theory doesn't mean a wild guess. It means an explanation that is well supported by the data. So in science, the term theory means something much, much stronger than what it means to a layperson. For example, we have E equals mc squared. This is something that we learned from studying light, from studying matter, from studying physics. You also might have different physics equations about gravity. You might have our understanding of how volcanoes form, or you might have our understanding of how photosynthesis works. This would all fall under theoretical science. And of course, the theoretical science will be derived from operational science. It'll be derived from experimental science. It'll be derived from historical science. So theoretical science is basically our explanation, our understanding of the knowledge that we've gained. We've made these observations, we've done these experiments, and now we can take all of this and put it into an equation or put it into a concept that we think explains what is going on in the world around us. And all of this, once again, brings us back to historical science. So we've kind of come full circle. And like I said before, historical science is more prone to bias because different scientists will disagree on what they think is or is not possible about the past. And historical science is basically attempts to explain the origins or history of natural phenomena based on what has been observed about the natural world. So we're taking everything we know here and we're trying to figure out what happened in the past. We're taking clues from the present and trying to reassemble events from the past. How old is the Earth? Where did DNA come from in the first place? What did Lucy look like when she was alive? What happened to the dinosaurs? What were Neanderthals like? So we're trying to take what we know about science in the present and taking clues that still exist in the present, because remember, fossils, when we're looking at a fossil, we're not looking at the past. We're looking at an object that exists in the present. And we're trying to take this clue about a past event and trying to figure out what were things like in the past when nobody was around to observe them. So that's basically the difference between operations science and origins science. Now, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, comment, rate, check out the other videos that I've uploaded, and check out my website, greenslug.com. Remember, slug is spelled with 2 G's. And also check out my new science search engine. As a biotech major, I decided to develop a customized search engine for science majors and for scientists. And the website for that is blueslug.com. And again, slug is spelled with 2 G's. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.